All right, well, welcome back to another week of Master Menopause Metabolism with Andrea Tornis, Chief Menopause Executive Officer. I'm going to talk today about something that is going to blow your mind, so be ready. Why everything you've been told about fitness after 40 is actually making you sicker. Yep, so buckle up. We're going to talk a lot about this one. So, if you're working out 5 days a week, eating less than you have in years, and still gaining fat around your midsection, I need you to hear this. You're not failing, you've been given the wrong instructions. So, I've had over 20 years in the fitness business. I'm an IFPA pro bodybuilder status, competed in CrossFit. And now I know now what I didn't then during all of that. So, what you're going to walk away with is basically a great understanding about what are some of the mistakes, why your fitness may be making you sicker and fatter, and what to do about it, and how to change it and optimize it so that you can feel better, get to your goals, and understand this whole thing. So, here we go. We're going to talk about eat less, move more strategy. Okay. So when we eat less, we know that our cortisol spikes. That then makes our insulin dysregulate. That then creates belly fat storage. So the biology of restriction after 40, that's what that looks like. So there's nothing to be gained with this strategy any longer. And then let's talk about the move more. So it's that chronic cardio, the elevated, which creates elevated cortisol, which then creates a muscle breakdown. We call that the catabolic effect, which then creates a slower metabolism, which then creates the cardio trap. Because if you don't do the cardio, and there's also the law of diminishing returns with that, you're going to gain weight, especially around the midsection. So that is a trap in my mind. And one, I've always done these little in my mind experiments to kind of prove myself wrong or right. So the more I know about this whole topic, I've kind of taken a moment to look around the gym when I go into Lifetime. And I scan the area for women in the weight area, and I scan the areas of women on the treadmills or on the ellipticals or the cardio, and they have two different kind of areas, right? And it has changed somewhat, meaning I might see now 2 to 3 younger women working out with me, maybe one older woman in the strength area, in the men's area, okay? But it used to be like nobody. It was like me and the guys. And then before that, it wasn't even me because I didn't do it. And so, now it's always been like that. So I look over at the cardio equipment and it's all women. And that just breaks my heart because I'm like, okay, these men are much more toned. They have a lot more muscle. They must know something that we don't as women, but yet we still don't kind of head over there. Why not? So I'm going to talk to you about, the advice where this cardio trap, this eat less, where this was built on. So the advice was built on studies of college-aged men. All right. So they took the data from men in college, which I would say even my husband talks to my sons now and says, yeah, you can eat that now, but it's going to change when you get to be my age. And I've heard multiple men say that, and they're not wrong. But it's not a 44-year-old woman whose estrogen is shifting when they said, I want you to eat less, move more, do more cardio, get moving, decrease calories. No, it is a college-age man who has ideal amounts of testosterone to keep muscle and to have muscle, obviously. And then not to mention the age range, and then someone who's probably never dieted before, so they don't have that metabolic breakdown. So really that strategy worked for them, but does it work for us? Metabolic inflexibility is basically your cells cannot switch fuel sources any longer. That's why you feel exhausted at 3 and wired at 11 p.m. your metabolic inflexibility because your body is channeled to do a certain thing. So let's talk about also our what the medical system is missing in all of this. So when we go to the doctor, they give us that standard blood work. What it tests, what it misses, and why your levels are normal can still mean your hormones are wrecking you. All right. So we have no idea what's happening with your liver, which creates all of the magic with your hormones. I'm sorry to tell you, but that could be blocking you. And then just the hormones in general. And one connects to another, which connects to another. So if one is falling short, like the cortisol is way up here, that's going to affect your insulin, and then your thyroid kind of masters this whole thing. So we got a lot going on. But the difference of the Dutch test and what it actually shows, and this is why it has become our preferred method of testing, it will show us a woman's cortisol rhythm. So I can see like, okay, do they have elevated cortisol? I just had a woman come back and she had thought she had elevated cortisol, but it's showing that her cortisol is actually quite low. Her metabolized cortisol was low and the rhythm of it is low. So what does that mean? That means she's almost like past adrenal fatigue because it's not even making the cortisol anymore. So the Dutch test showed us that. And then the hormone metabolites are estrogen pathways. So not just serum levels of estrogen, but the pathways. And the difference between really a snapshot and a movie. So that is what you need versus looking at serum levels. And they are very, very few and far between if they're going to test that anyway. Your doctor gets 15 minutes with you, you know that. I mean, they come in, they, are with you 15 minutes. They were trained in something called disease management. They were not trained in optimization. Those are not the same thing. And so that is why they don't have the time nor the knowledge. They can prevent or help get the symptoms off the disease that you might be having, but they don't have enough time or education to dive into why this might be happening, nor do they really understand nutritional needs for you, right? So let's talk about the GI map. So why gut dysfunction shows up as a hormone dysfunction. So the estrobiome, the connection no one is talking about in mainstream medicine at all, is the brain health is connected to the gut health. So what's happening up here and hormonally throughout your body is happening and starting in the gut. So if there is something off with the liver or the gut microbiome, that's going to be a big deal. And there's things that naturally grow like candida. There's also, gut dysbiosis where there can be different kinds of staphylococcus, streptococcus that have had an overgrowth in your small intestine. And when that happens, there can even be something called H. pylori, which we've seen. And when that happens, then all of the good bacteria that you think you have is being overrode with this negative kind of microbiome. And so that starts to downgrade what's going on in the brain. And then you're not able to take in the nutrients like you once were because you start getting things like leaky gut. And it all started with maybe a thyroid dysfunction from dieting. And then suddenly your stomach acid goes down. You're not making as much bile from the liver. And then we start to see this sneak up of all of these gut microbiome issues. So we look at a GI map and we can see what it is. We can target it. We can get rid of it, eliminate it, and then repopulate the gut. But it takes a little bit of work, a couple of months. But it's very, very amazing once this happens. And I see it all the time. So, I've been inside the machine, my 20 years inside, this personal training certificate world. It does not teach any trainer about female hormones, period. So when I owned my gym, I thought that it was calories in, calories out. if we worked harder, they'd get better results. And I thought that for my own body, and I thought that for every client. And I thought that if we, got their leg muscles to move, we'd be burning more calories at rest, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't understand anything that had to do with birth control, PCOS, IUD, and then fast forward to perimenopause and menopause, postmenopause, what that looks like. The gym business model runs on, volume, more members, more supplements, not on getting the client's results. And then they want to, send you home. That is not how it works. They want you to stay on with them, including, every diet, every book. They want you to rave about their diet. They want you to tell your friends about it. They want to get as many people on board because that is the model, right? And so it's not really about results, but I know every woman who joined my gym wanted results. And so that was a thing where I felt like, God, I feel like such an imposter, or are they lying to me? Like, are they overeating all this food and just skipping their workouts? And I actually feel bad about that now because I'm much more educated on what's going on in their bodies and why eating less, moving more isn't working. So, what I did when I was competing is, basically I had not really, I thought I had dieted. Like, so I ate low carb, most of the time, things like that, which I didn't really know. And then I just kind of under ate. And then I was super amazed when I hired a coach to help me with my first show. And I was at, 1,600 calories. And then I included carbs, and suddenly my body started burning fat like nobody's business. And I probably was way under eating up until that point. And then I added the cardio, and, I had the strength training happening. I definitely lost muscle. Like, that was another thing I didn't realize. Like, bodybuilders are very, very, very thin. Like, you lose a lot of weight. And so, like, my jean size went from a size like 8 down to a 0, 0 when I stepped on the stage. So I was like skin and bones, and hormonally I lost my period. I did not have that. So all my health markers basically were not good. I had trouble seeing. I felt like I was having blackouts. I was overhydrating my body, getting rid of minerals, like all of this process to look good on the stage. And so the huge difference, what I do now is I don't do all of that cardio. I'm going to do things like taking, extra steps, like 8,000 steps a day, on average is kind of when I'm really flexing, to 12, if I can. And then doing 2 to 3, sometimes 4 strength trainings a week where they're split up. And then I make sure to eat enough protein. I'm eating more than 1,600 calories so that I can continue to fuel my muscles. So it's just a way different approach. I lean out now a little bit, but like I kind of stay, above 19% body fat for health reasons. It still looks good. It's easy to maintain. It's healthy. Before, I didn't understand what I was doing, and what I would have done differently now is, well, I would not have drank as much water as I did without minerals, without supplements. I would have understood that I needed to reverse diet after my bodybuilding show. So basically I got there and I didn't understand that you slowly kind of scale your way back up in food and how that looks, and you do a certain percentage each week. There's so much I would have done differently, but I was training women the same way that I trained myself. Like, I figured, well, if I got to 8 to 10% body fat doing that, that's what other women needed too. Not understanding that was a 16-week stint. My metabolic flexibility, was not maintained. There was a law of diminishing returns. But I spent the last several years now fixing all of that in my body. So, this is what I want you to hear, ladies, is that we need to test, not guess. Test first, guess less. You can't fix what you haven't measured. So I can never guess. I will have a room full of women that I'm talking to in a workshop, and they'll tell me they all kind of have the same type of symptoms, but then 5 or 6 of them join my program. We do the testing, and 5 or 6 of them have very different results due to their muscle mass, their age, what they've done in the past, their lifestyle. It's so different. And so, my other piece of advice too is nourish, don't restrict. Like, if you're not seeing results, think outside the box a little, that there probably is some type of inflammation or nutrient deficiency. And so restricting more is just going to cause more stress, because protein and blood sugar stability in perimenopause is everything. So your body is already reacting to all of this stress. And so you put another stress on it, like not getting proper nutrients or enough protein, and it's going to affect your sleep, which causes more stress, which is going to cause more insulin resistance, which is just going to cause more midsection fat gain. And I'm just being honest. So understand, nourish, don't restrict. Strength over cardio. So why muscle is the metabolic organ that changes after 40 is because now our muscle is starting to decline. And year over year, it's going down, not up. And so we want to come in and say, no, that's not okay. I'm going to keep the muscle I have and I'm going to build more. So anytime I try to lean out now, always the goal is to, if I want the scale to go down, 5 pounds or whatnot, that's what it used to be. Oh, I want to lose 5 pounds. Now it's, what if I could lose 3 pounds but gain 2 pounds of muscle? That's going to be more beneficial for my body over the long run. It's going to look better. Maybe the scale isn't going to go down quite as much, but that's okay. It's going to be long lasting and it's going to keep my body good. So also understanding the role of HRT and peptides. So, we have to normalize this conversation. Like, they're not magic, neither one of them, but they are a very powerful tool that women can put in their toolbox to feel better, have less side effects, and make things optimal for their body to build more muscle and to burn fat and to be nourished. These are tools, not shortcuts. They're just like weight training and walking and sleeping. Sleeping is not really a tool, but it helps. And so the women in my program aren't doing more. They're finally doing the right things because we have this path for them specifically. So, let's talk about the 3 things that, that you guys know that most women your age don't. And that is right now that eating less, moving more is a men in college strategy. So maybe it worked the first time for you even, or maybe it worked the first 15 times. But if you've gained the weight back, I'm sorry to tell you, it is not a good strategy for you anymore. So understanding that giving yourself nutrients and lowering your stress levels with strength training is really, really going to help you. And then taking care of your body and nourishing it and not restricting. And so, if you've been doing the work and not seeing the results, you're my person. I mean, if you're at Club Pilates on a weekly basis, 3 times a week, or if you're at that Pure Barre class putting in the work, and, if you're someone who goes to the gym and you do your strength training, you're like, well, Andrea, I do go there, but I don't really see the results. Actually, I think things are getting worse. You're my person because you're not 100 pounds overweight. Like, literally, we are talking about fine tuning and helping you work smarter, not harder, so you can have the body of your youth again. And it's absolutely possible. It's just going to take a different strategy. There could be inflammation blocking you. There could be a gut microbiome. And once we figure that out, it's like, wow, it just becomes so easy. Let's work smarter, not harder. Okay. So I want you to join my monthly webinar. It's like, if you have not, every single month have a webinar. I just had one on Monday. It's live. I get to meet you. We get to talk. We get to ask questions. I'm going to teach you, about these things more in depth, called The Pause. And so my next one is April 13th, which is a Monday. So I want you to, get into that webinar. Book a discovery diagnostic call. There's a link in my bio, to do that, and some more info on what the Dutch test, what the GI map, all those things can look at for you that you probably don't know about your body that could move you further. So the fitness industry spent 20 years teaching me what to sell you, okay? And I'm spending the rest of my career telling you the truth instead. So, if this has slapped you in the face and it feels like a rude wake-up call, I'm sorry, not sorry, because this is the real deal. All right. Okay. Well, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in a discovery call. All right. Thanks. Bye bye.